It was barely 8:45 a.m., but this Monday was already shaping up to be the worst one I'd ever had. I'd kissed my wife Marissa goodbye earlier that morning. She's been my partner for 15 years and is an incredibly successful real estate agent, judging by her impressive stack of commissions and bonuses. "And you have a good day," she chimed in that overly polished realtor voice she knew I couldn't stand. Her smirk suggested she was holding back a secret, which only added to my irritation. On my way to the office, I couldn't stop thinking about the heap of reports due by the end of the month. I got in at my usual time, 7:45, dropped off my briefcase and headed to the men's room for a quick coffee break. That's when everything went sideways. While at the office, I was suddenly overwhelmed by a sharp pain at the WC, prompting a loud scream. My boss, Alan Randall, quickly came to assist, expressing deep concern. I described the severe, burning sensation, and we both noticed the alarming greenish discharge. Alan immediately advised me to seek medical attention and reassured me not to worry about the pending reports, promising to handle them and suggesting I take the necessary time off. Grateful, I thanked him for his understanding and support, appreciating his compassionate approach during such a distressing moment. I splashed water on my face, grabbed my briefcase, and headed out the door. I told the receptionist I wouldn't be back for at least a day, maybe longer. Normally, I'd see my regular doctor, but his office was clear across town, and I doubted I'd get an appointment today. Instead, I opted for the urgent care just a few blocks from my office. Once there, they quickly took some samples and directed me to the waiting room. It felt like hours, but only 30 minutes passed before a nurse called out sharply, "Greg Watson." She gestured for me to come over with a look that made me feel less than human. Curious about her demeanor, I followed her to the observation room. "Have a seat, Mr. Watson," she instructed coldly. I sat down and watched as she took my vitals, blood pressure, temperature, the works, without much conversation. After jotting down the details, she mentioned, "The doctor will see you shortly," and left the room. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. An older man in a white coat entered, holding a folder. "Mr. Watson, I'm Dr. Smith," he introduced himself. Sitting down, he opened the folder and didn't mince words. "Your tests show you have gonorrhea." "Gonorrhea?" I repeated, stunned. "Yes, it's a physically transmitted disease," Dr. Smith said, giving me a look that suggested I should have known better. "I'll prescribe an antibiotic, and you should avoid any sexual activity for at least 7 days after you finish your treatment. If you still have symptoms after that, see your primary doctor." The news hit me like a truck, but Dr. Smith's straightforward manner helped cut through the shock. I nodded, processing the steps I needed to take next. He started by saying that other tests were ongoing, and it could take a couple of weeks or more to get my results. He then asked for a list of people I'd recently been in contact with. "I've only been intimate with one person in my entire life," I told him. "My wife." He gave me a sad look for a moment before checking my chart. "If I got it from her, wouldn't she show symptoms?" I asked. "Not necessarily, Mr. Watson," he replied. "She might confuse them for something like a bladder or vaginal infection. It's important she gets checked soon. Waiting could lead to serious complications." "Excuse me, Mr. Watson." He handed me some medication and had me sign a few forms. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Watson, and make sure to follow up with your doctor," he advised as he left. Feeling a mix of emotions, I finished up and headed to my car. I called my boss to update him. "I'm sorry to hear that, Greg," Alan said. "Don't worry, your privacy is my priority. You'll take a leave and return when you're ready. I've taken care of your reports, so just focus on getting better." "Thank you," I replied, ending the call. Next, I had to talk to my parents, whom I never hid anything from. I hit their speed dial and my dad answered. "Hey, son, are you at work?" he asked. "No, Dad, I'm dealing with a health issue and need to talk with you and Mom," I said. "Of course," he replied. "Are the kids okay?" "They're fine," I assured him. "But I'd rather not discuss this over the phone." "Come over then. We'll have coffee and talk," he suggested. We hung up and I put away my phone, ready to face the next conversation. I should tell you a bit about my background. My sister Denise and I were raised in a very religious and loving family. Our childhood was filled with laughter and love, and although our parents were very much in love, they were also quite strict. One of the key rules in our house was no closeness before marriage. Because of this upbringing, I didn't have sex until I married Marissa. While we were dating, I told her I wanted to wait until marriage. She responded with a big smile and a deep kiss, saying, "That's so sweet. I promise I'll rock your world on our wedding night." And she certainly did. It was an incredible experience, and she was patient and loving as she showed me how to make love in a way that pleased her. Eventually, I began to really enjoy our intimacy, and it seemed she did too. Marissa had been with others before me, but that didn't bother me as long as she was committed to our relationship. Not long after we married, she took a job at a busy real estate office while working towards her license. Our first daughter, Lisa, was born about a year into our marriage, followed by Ginger a year later. Marissa decided to have her tubes tied after Ginger's tough delivery, feeling that 2 children were enough. While I had hoped for a son, I couldn't have been happier with my daughters. Both became the light of my life, quickly turning me into a doting father. When Marissa went back to work after her maternity leave, I often found myself playing the role of Mr. Mom, especially when she worked late or had paperwork to catch up on. As the girls grew, I took them to their various activities, Lisa with her music lessons and Ginger with her sports, particularly when Marissa's work took her away in the evenings. Over time, though, Marissa started to be away even more frequently, attending seminars and company retreats, sometimes over weekends or for an entire week. She always made sure to call us every night, but the increasing distance was hard. On top of everything, she developed an irritating, fake persona that really got under my skin. I brought it up more than once, but she seemed committed to it. Her attitude toward work had shifted too, and I started to wonder if she was spending too much time there. Even our daughters began to notice the changes in their mom. Despite these issues, the thought of her being unfaithful never crossed my mind. She knew my strong stance on infidelity. One day, I arrived at my parents' house and pulled into the driveway. My dad greeted me at the door with a warm hug and a pat on the shoulder. "We just finished the coffee. Come on in, and we'll make some more and talk," he invited. I walked into the dining room and gave my mom a hug before we sat down at the table. She poured us coffee, and I added cream and butter pecan syrup to mine. Dad did the same, and we each took a sip. "Why don't we start with a prayer?" Dad suggested. "Of course," I agreed. It was their way, prayer first, then conversation. After a few minutes of prayer, we got down to business. "What's wrong, son?" Dad asked. "I just came from the urgent care clinic. I have gonorrhea," I said. "Oh my God," Dad responded quietly, always composed as long as he heard the truth. "Were you fooling around?" he asked after a pause. "No, Dad, never," I assured him. "Marissa is the only woman I've ever been with." He nodded. "I believe you, son. I just needed to hear you say it." "What are you planning to do?" Mom chimed in. "I don't see any other option but to divorce her," I admitted. "It's going to be tough on the girls." "They're old enough to understand," I added. "I can't just overlook this. Even if she promises it won't happen again, I can't trust her." "Do you know how long this has been going on?" Dad asked. "I just found out this morning," I replied. "Adultery is a clear ground for divorce." "Hold on a second," Dad said, getting up to go to his office. Mom looked heartbroken. "I'm so sorry this is happening, Greg," she said. "I always thought Marissa was such a wonderful woman." "Me too, Mom. It seems she fooled us all." Dad returned with his Rolodex, flipping through until he found a particular card. "There she is," he said. "You know Gina Hawkins? The family law attorney from our church?" I asked. "Yes, that's her. Let me give her a call," he said. It wasn't surprising he had her card. As a deacon, Dad kept contacts from the congregation handy. He dialed and spoke to Gina's secretary before getting through to her. I listened as he explained the situation. "Gina, hi, it's Dan Watson. Yes, from the church. Listen, I'm calling because my son could really use your help soon. He's facing a tough situation, and I think you could assist." "Oh, really? This afternoon at 12:30? That's perfect. I'll make sure he gets there. Thanks so much, Gina. I owe you one. Take care and give your little one a big hug from us, okay? Bye." After hanging up, Dad turned to me. "That was Gina. She can see you today at 12:30, thanks to a canceled appointment. Make sure you bring your financials and tax returns from the last 2 years," he informed me. "Okay," I said, realizing I needed to get my documents ready. "I guess I'd better head inside and pack my things." "That sounds like a good plan," Dad replied. "And you know you have to talk to Marissa about the STD. She needs to get tested as well to prevent any further spread." "Maybe the girls should stay with us for a bit," Mom suggested. "Things might get tense at home with everything going on." "You're right," Dad agreed. "Have them stay a few days until things calm down." "Look, son, why don't you bring the girls over after school? We'll take care of getting them to school on time," he proposed. "I will." "Thanks, Dad," I said. We chatted a bit more before I got up to leave. Dad hugged me at the door. "It'll work out, son," he reassured me. "Just don't do anything rash. I know you're hurt and might want revenge on Marissa, but remember Romans 12:19. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Don't make me bail you out of jail. Think about your girls." I grinned. "No problem, Dad. I got it," I assured him. I got back in my car and headed home. Dad was right about one thing. I did want revenge on Marissa and whoever else was involved. After over 15 years of loving her exclusively, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. When I arrived home, I started going through my files to find my old tax returns. I also needed to find Marissa's because about 8 years ago, she had suggested we file taxes separately to save money. Back then, it made sense. But when I looked at her tax forms, I discovered the real reason she wanted us to file separately. Marissa had earned much more in bonuses and commissions than I had realized. Seeing how much she had put into our joint bank account, I wondered where all her extra money had gone. My search led me to a folder full of bank statements from a bank I didn't recognize. The latest statement showed she had saved almost $1 million over the past 8 years. What was her plan, I wondered? Was this some kind of plan for when the kids went to college? I collected the statements and her tax forms, put them in my folder, and went to my car. Just as I was about to leave, my phone beeped with a text from Marissa. She said she would be late because of a showing and not to wait for dinner. "Yeah, sure," I said to myself. I replied, "No problem. See you when you get home." As I sent the message, I couldn't help but wonder if she noticed that I didn't say, "I love you," like I usually do. I arrived at Gina Hawkins's office building, parked the car, and headed to her suite. As I walked in, I was greeted by an attractive blonde receptionist. "I'm here to see Gina Hawkins," I told her. "I have an appointment for 12:30. After a quick check on her computer, she smiled and led me to Gina's office. Gina stood to greet me, shaking my hand warmly. "It's good to see you, Greg," she said, smiling. "Would you like some coffee?" "That would be great, thanks," I replied. Gina turned to the receptionist. "Could you bring 2 cups of coffee, please? And maybe some butter and nuts?" "Sure," the receptionist replied before leaving the room. She returned shortly with 2 cups and some butter portions. Gina motioned for me to sit, and I took a seat across from her. "I was surprised to get a call from your father this morning," Gina began. "So you're facing a problem that needs legal attention?" "Yeah, it looks like Marissa's been unfaithful," I said. "I'm sorry to hear that," Gina responded, her expression sympathetic. "I always thought you two were solid." "So did I, but I guess I was wrong," I said. "Can you tell me about my options?" I explained the situation, including my visit to the clinic and the discovery of the bank statements earlier that day. Gina nodded thoughtfully. "I understand how tough this must be," she said. "Let me explain a bit about how divorce works here. It's not necessarily about justice. It often comes down to finances. In this state, we have no-fault divorce laws, but you can still file on grounds of adultery if you have strong evidence." "What about the STD she gave me?" I asked. Gina nodded. "That's a strong point," she acknowledged. "But her lawyer might claim you caught it from someone else. We know that's not true, but we need to convince a judge. Regarding the money she set aside, she could argue it was meant as a surprise for retirement." "You don't really believe that, do you?" I questioned. "No, it seems more like an exit strategy," Gina replied. "She's probably waiting for an opportune time, maybe after your daughters finish school, to leave without complications. Proving that in court, though, will be difficult." "So I'm just out of luck?" I pressed. "Not necessarily," Gina reassured me. "I can hire a private detective to investigate. It's pricey, but it could provide the solid evidence we need in court. Would you like to proceed with that?" "Yes, let's go ahead," I decided. "Great," Gina responded. "I'll need all the details you can provide. Her car's make and model, license plate number, places she frequents." I pulled out my phone. "Actually, I installed a phone tracker app when she lost her phone a few months back. Let me check if it's still active." I opened the app and located her phone at a house on the north side of town. I showed Gina the address. "Perfect," she said, jotting it down. "I'll get in touch with my investigator right now." She made the call, giving the investigator all the details we had. After hanging up, she looked at me with a determined expression. "We'll handle this as discreetly as possible," she assured me. "Okay, we're all set. If there's something going on, we'll find out soon enough. Now let's focus on your situation. You have 2 teenage daughters, Lisa and Ginger, ages 14 and 13, correct?" Gina asked. "Yes, that's right. They're not quite old enough to choose which parent they want to live with, but it's getting close. I want to seek custody," I confirmed. "Understood," Gina nodded. You should know that courts typically favor the mother for primary custody. However, we can certainly make a case for you, especially given the circumstances. Who's been the main caretaker? Marissa often goes out in the evenings, so I've been the one at home, I explained. Got it. And just to clarify, are you certain the girls are biologically yours? She inquired cautiously. I believe so, yes. At this point, does it matter? My name is on their birth certificates, and I've raised them since they were babies, I replied a bit defensively. I understand, Gina reassured me. But it might be good to know for sure. I can refer you to a lab for a paternity test if you'd like. Okay, I'll think about that, I said. What about the house situation? We don't have a mortgage. The house was my grandparents', and now it's in a family trust under my parents' names. They let us live there, I explained. Good. That simplifies things a bit. No mortgage issues to deal with, she noted. There will still be personal property and possibly other assets to consider dividing. I'll prepare a list of what you need to address. Is there anything else I need to do right now? I asked. Not at this moment, she replied. I'll start drafting the paperwork, but let's wait to see what the private investigator finds before we proceed too far. However, go ahead and complete the checklist I give you. Do you think I should confront her about this personally? I wondered aloud. It might be wise to at least inform her that she needs to get tested for STDs to prevent any further spread. It's important for both your sakes, Gina advised. That makes sense, I agreed. After finalizing the paperwork, Gina handed me a checklist and a card with the lab's contact information. Anything else I should know? I asked. That's all for now, she replied. Go ahead and handle these tasks. We'll inform you if we receive any updates from the investigator. For any questions about the fees, please speak to my secretary. And Greg? Yes? Don't do anything rash. We'll get through this together. It won't be easy, but things will improve. I understand, I said, appreciating her support. Thanks for everything. You're welcome, she responded. We'll keep in touch. With that, I left her office, wrote a check for her services, and drove to the lab. After picking up the test kit, I stopped by the bank to verify some of the details Gina had mentioned. Then I headed home. This might have been a moment for some to drown their sorrows in alcohol, reflecting on the misery of their situation. But that's not me. I've never been one to drink. Another one of those rules I grew up with. My parents didn't drink, and neither did I. Instead, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. Just as the coffee was ready, my two daughters burst through the door. They usually came home around this time, taking the bus. Normally, they wouldn't see me until later, but today was different. Daddy, you're home, Lisa greeted me with surprise. Are you okay? Yes, Daddy, why are you home so early? Ginger chimed in. It's been a pretty hectic day, I explained. Listen, could you two pack some things for a few days? You're going to stay with your grandparents for a while. Why, Daddy? Ginger's voice was laced with concern. What's going on? Is something wrong with Mom? Did you guys have a fight? Well, yes, something is wrong, but your mom and I haven't had a fight. That might happen later, I said, trying to keep the conversation as light as possible. You caught her cheating, didn't you? Lisa's question caught me off guard. I was taken aback. What makes you think that? I asked. She looked down, slightly embarrassed. I've heard her on the phone a couple of times, she confessed. She was using that fake voice she does. You know, the one that annoys you? I nodded, encouraging her to continue. It was something like, I can't wait to see you again, love. And then she giggled, not like herself at all. It sounded very personal. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I know you don't like gossip, she added. It's all right, I reassured her, giving her a hug. Lisa then added, she's been acting really strange lately. It's like she doesn't really want to talk to us much anymore. Do you feel that way too, Ginger? I asked, turning to my younger daughter. She nodded. Yeah, like she doesn't want us bothering her. I gave them both a reassuring hug. You can bother me any time, I smiled. But right now, I need to swab your cheeks for a test. Cheek swab? Ginger inquired, eyeing the test kit. Yes, I confirmed. My lawyer thinks we should do a DNA test. You don't think we're really your kids? Lisa asked, a hint of worry in her voice. I know you're my kids, I reassured her. But we just need to confirm everything legally. So you're getting a divorce? Lisa asked directly. It looks like it, I acknowledged. Isn't there any way you could forgive her? Ginger wondered softly. I don't think so, I replied. She made a mistake that's pretty serious. I had to see a doctor about it this morning. Lisa gasped, almost slipping out a swear word. Sorry, she muttered. It's okay, I assured her with a weak smile. I've felt like swearing today too. Now let's get these samples done. I swabbed the inside of Lisa's cheek gently, then did the same for Ginger. Once their samples were secured in the kit, I took a swab from my own cheek and placed it into a separate vial. Okay, you two head upstairs and pack enough for a couple of nights. We need to be ready to leave in 15 minutes, and don't forget your homework, I instructed. As the girls went to their rooms to gather their things, I organized the DNA test kit. My plan was to drop the kids off at their grandparents' house and then take the kit to the lab. As we drove, Lisa asked, "Daddy, if you get divorced, can I stay with you?" "Yeah, me too," Ginger chimed in. "I hope so, girls," I responded. "I'm going to ask for custody, but you need to understand that courts often favor the mother." "I don't want to stay with her," Lisa confessed. "Right now, I hate her for what she did to us." I thought about encouraging her not to hate her mother, but I held back. She was voicing feelings that were all too familiar to me. "I understand how you feel, sweetheart," I assured her. "Just remember, no matter what happens, I love you both immensely, and I'll always be there for you." "I love you too, Daddy," Lisa said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her tears made my resolve even stronger, fueled by my anger towards Marissa. In my mind, I vowed retribution. "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." My father's words echoed in my head, calming my vengeful thoughts. We arrived at my parents' house and pulled into the driveway. I hugged and kissed both girls, promising to call them later. We were met at the porch by my dad, who hugged the girls as they carried their bags inside. Mom came out to greet us too. "I'd better get to the lab before it's too late," I said after a few moments. "Are you okay?" my dad asked, concern evident in his voice. "As fine as I can be under the circumstances," I replied. "We'll pray for you," he said. "Give us a call and let us know how things go with Marissa," he added. "I will, but I'm not sure when that will be," I replied. "It's okay, son," Mom reassured me. "You can call any time." "Thanks," I said, giving her a hug. "I better head off now." I left feeling a mix of support from my family and the heavy burden of the steps I needed to take next. I got back in my car and headed to the lab, arriving about 30 minutes before they closed. I handed the DNA test kit to the receptionist. "How soon can I expect the results?" I inquired. "We should have them ready by the end of the week," she replied with a reassuring smile. "Great, thanks," I said, and left for home. Along the way, I felt the need to talk to someone who might shed more light on Marissa's behavior. I decided to call her sister Loretta. I connected my Bluetooth earpiece and dialed her number. She picked up after the second ring. "Hey, Greg, how's my favorite brother-in-law?" Loretta greeted cheerfully. "I've had better days," I replied. "Do you have a minute to talk?" "Of course," she responded. "What's going on? Have you spoken to Marissa recently?" "Not since the family gathering last month at your place," I said. "Actually, things aren't great." I briefly explained the situation, keeping the details succinct yet clear. "Oh my God," Loretta gasped after I finished. "Greg, I hate to say this, but it seems like she's fallen back into old patterns." "Old patterns?" I echoed, puzzled. Loretta hesitated before continuing. "Marissa was quite wild in her younger days. She went through relationships rapidly, almost as fast as changing clothes. She wasn't faithful to anyone she dated during high school and college. I thought she had changed after meeting you. She even told me she had found her soulmate and was done with her old ways." I didn't think it was necessary to bring it up before. "I appreciate that, but I wish I had known," I admitted. "I'm sorry, Greg. I should have told you," she said. "It's okay, Loretta. It's not your fault," I assured her, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Listen, I understand you're planning to have her move out. I'm calling to see if she could possibly stay with you for a while," I said, getting to the point. "Actually, yes," I added, "if that's okay with you." I heard Loretta sigh on the other end of the phone. "She might stay here for a bit until she sorts herself out," she said. "Frank won't be thrilled, though." "I don't want to cause any trouble for you guys," I responded, concerned. "It's okay. He'll manage. Just as long as it's not for too long," she reassured me. "Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm not sure when she'll be home tonight, but I'll give you a call when she's on her way to you," I said. "Thank you," Loretta replied. "How did the girls handle everything?" "They're upset, but they're handling it better than I expected," I answered. "You've raised strong young women, Greg. Stay strong for them," she encouraged. "I'm trying," I said. "I need to go make dinner now. We'll talk later, okay?" "I will," I promised. Then we ended the call. Back home, I warmed up some leftover meatloaf for dinner. Just as I finished eating, the phone rang again. It was Gina, my lawyer. I glanced at the clock. It was just past 6:30 p.m. Hey, I greeted her. Working late tonight? I asked. For you, yes, Gina replied. I've received some preliminary findings from the private investigator. It appears Marissa has been quite active. She's met with 3 men since this afternoon. I was stunned. 3 men in one day? How does she even find the time? Yes, Gina confirmed. I'm sending over the details now. Photos, videos, and a summary of the report. I'd advise against watching the video, but you should definitely listen to the last few minutes of the audio. It's quite revealing. So, do you think you have enough to proceed with the divorce? Absolutely, I affirmed. Good. Listen to that audio, and then call me, she instructed. Will do? Thanks, Gina, I said, hanging up, feeling a mix of anger and relief that I was finally moving forward. I booted up my laptop and accessed my email. I found the video Gina mentioned and fast-forwarded to the specific part she had highlighted. Although I had no interest in watching Marissa in such a compromising situation, I was compelled to understand the context of their conversation. I see you're married, the man remarked, noting her rings. For the moment, Marissa replied casually. I noticed you're married too, she observed, glancing at his ring. Yes, my wife and I have an open relationship, he explained. And you? It's not open in that sense, but I take my freedoms as they come, she stated. So, your husband doesn't know? He probed. No, he doesn't, she confessed. He has no idea what kind of person he's married to. Listening, I thought bitterly. Now I'm realizing the truth. What's the matter? Isn't he good to you at home? The man asked, digging deeper. He had better be. I taught him everything he knows, she boasted. You taught him? The man seemed surprised. Was he inexperienced when you married? Believe it or not, he was a 23-year-old virgin, she divulged. He's quite religious, doesn't smoke, drink, or even curse. He'd probably have a fit if I swore around him. He didn't even know how to make love until we were married. Damn, the man reacted. Sounds like you think he's a loser. So why stay with him? Is there love? In some way, I suppose. He's a good father, looks after our girls well, and doesn't complain when I come home late. But beyond that, he's dull, she admitted. Are the girls even his? He asked curiously. She shrugged nonchalantly. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe. Doesn't matter much to me. He believes they're his, and that's what counts, she claimed. How long have you been fooling around? He inquired. I don't mind saying, she replied breezily. I've been having my fun throughout our marriage, and he's still clueless. He has no idea? Hasn't been with anyone else, so how would he know any different? He said. That's it, she confirmed. Hearing her dismiss our life and our family so flippantly devastated me. The depth of her deceit was far worse than I had imagined. At that time, I had to hold back throwing up. It made me feel sick to think that she'd been treating me like this throughout our entire marriage. Do you plan to stick with him? Yeah, for now. At least until the girls finish high school and head to college, she said. That's in about 4 or 5 years. I'll have everything ready to leave by then. Why wait? Yeah, because usually the courts give custody to the mom, and the last thing I want is to end up with 2 teenage girls on my hands, she says. What are you going to do after this? I wanted to party. Maybe hang out with a few people at once. Maybe go on a cruise or retire to Costa Rica or something. I'm not sure, she said. Oh, I've got a couple of guys. Can you sneak away for the weekend? He asked. Sure, she said. I can tell Greg I have a mandatory weekend seminar or something. He'll believe anything I say. Let me know when you can leave and we'll arrange it. You have my number. I will, she said, smiling. He checked his watch. It's getting late and I need to go. I can't wait to see you again, honey. I'm excited too, she said. He left, and Marissa sat on the bed with a big grin. Oh, Greg, she said to the empty room. You have no idea what's coming. After watching the video, I sat there stunned, wiping away tears. The depth of Marissa's betrayal hit me harder than I'd anticipated. With a heavy sigh, I dialed Gina. I just finished watching the video, I told her. You were right, it was enlightening. Gina's response was prompt. What's your next move? Burn it to the ground, I replied, my voice steady. Consider it done, she affirmed. And what about the men she was with? Is there anything we can do about them? I inquired, though part of me dreaded the answer. Unfortunately, no, Gina explained. Alienation of affection lawsuits aren't recognized in this state anymore. I paused, a bitter chuckle escaping me. Don't worry, their own circumstances will catch up with them soon enough. Echoing my father's earlier words, I murmured, Vengeance is mine. I will repay. Gina chuckled softly. Well, I need to get going, she said. I'll start preparing the divorce papers and get everything in order. If Marissa plans to run, we'll make sure it's not on her terms. Thanks, Gina. I really owe you for this, I said gratefully. Just take good care of your girls, she advised. With our conversation over, I leaned back on the couch, tears streaming down my cheeks. 15 years of my life, given to someone who had so little regard for our family. The pain was almost unbearable. A few minutes after hanging up with Gina, my phone buzzed. It was Marissa calling. Hi, I answered. Hi, Greg, she responded. Are you okay? It's been a tough day, I admitted. What's up with you? I'm just wrapping up at work. I think I closed another sale, she said, sounding upbeat. That's good, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I'll be home soon, so I'll see you in about half an hour, okay? Sure, I agreed. Okay, I'll see you then. Love you, she said, her voice taking on that unnervingly insincere tone. Me too, I responded, and hung up. I wondered briefly if she noticed my lack of an I love you in return, but then realized it no longer mattered to me whether she did or not. I gathered the evidence I had printed earlier, 4 photos of Marissa with other men, all on a single sheet, and placed them in a folder. I arranged the folder on the kitchen table, where I planned to confront her when she arrived home. With everything set, I brewed a cup of coffee and sat down to wait. As the clock ticked past 1 hour, then 2, Marissa still hadn't come home. Concern mingled with frustration. I figured she might be delaying her return deliberately, but as more time passed without any word from her, worry crept in. I tried calling her cell phone only to be directed to voicemail. I left a message and followed up with a text, but there was no reply. 3 hours after our call and still no sign of her, I began to fear something more serious might have happened, like an accident. Almost 3.5 hours after Marissa was supposed to be home, my home phone rang. I hurried to answer it, hoping it was her, but it wasn't. Greg Watson, I answered. Mr. Watson, this is Angela Barnes from Mercy Hospital. Are you related to Marissa Watson? She's my wife, I responded, my heart sinking. Mr. Watson, your wife was in an accident and has been brought here for treatment. Can you come as soon as possible? Yes, of course, I said anxiously. Is she okay? What happened? I'm sorry, sir, I can't provide any details, Angela replied. Her doctor will speak with you when you arrive. Please come to the courtesy desk and they will direct you from there. Thank you, I said, trying to keep my composure. After hanging up, I stuffed the envelope with the pictures into my jacket pocket. I considered calling Dad or Loretta for support, but decided to wait until I knew more. I drove to the hospital with a heavy heart, parked quickly, and hurried inside. At the courtesy desk, I introduced myself. I'm Greg Watson, here to see Marissa Watson, I told the middle-aged woman behind the counter. She looked up Marissa's information and then nodded to another staff member. Would you please take Mr. Watson to the ICU? She instructed. The woman came around the desk and gestured for me to follow. We walked in silence to the ICU where a police officer was waiting. Mr. Watson? He asked as we approached. That's me, I confirmed. I'm Officer Simpson. I responded to your wife's accident, he explained. She was driving through the intersection of 3rd and Main when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit her car on the driver's side. My heart ached at the details. I'm very sorry, he added, his tone sincere. It's okay, I managed to say, although nothing felt okay. Her car was towed to the junkyard, he continued. There's not much left of it. He handed me a business card from the tow truck company. If there's anything I can do to help, please give me a call. Thank you, officer, I said, accepting the card. My mind raced with worry as I prepared to see Marissa, unsure of what awaited me. When the officer left, a man in a white medical coat approached me. Greg Watson, he inquired. Yes, I replied. I'm Dr. Blake, the doctor overseeing your wife's treatment. Can we talk for a moment? Of course, I responded. He led me to a small room, closed the door, and sat across from me at a round table. How is my wife? I asked immediately. She has multiple broken bones and several internal injuries. Additionally, she suffered a severe blow to the head. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to aid her recovery, he explained. I nodded, bracing for more. Is there anything else? Yes, there is more concerning news. Our preliminary tests suggest that she may be HIV positive. We've sent samples for more detailed blood tests, but it will take some time to confirm, Dr. Blake continued. I felt a cold wave of shock. I found out this morning she has gonorrhea, I shared, still processing the news. And are you receiving treatment for that? He asked. Yes, I confirmed. That's good to hear. However, I recommend you get tested for HIV as soon as possible. If you could see your primary care doctor tomorrow, that would be best. It's important to know your status, he advised. I nodded, absorbing his recommendations. How long will she be in the coma? I asked, shifting the topic back to Marissa. It depends on her progress, but it could be anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. After that, her stay here may extend depending on her recovery speed, he explained. Can I see her now? I asked, eager yet anxious. Absolutely, Dr. Blake said, standing. She needs your support now more than ever. He led me to the door and pointed down the hall. She's in room 5, just over there. Thank you, doctor, I said, shaking his hand before walking to Marissa's room, my mind racing with everything I had just learned. I walked into Marissa's hospital room and the sight of her struck me hard. She was swathed in bandages, with one leg encased in a cast that extended to her hip. Her face was bruised and swollen, stitched cuts marring her skin. She looked as though she had barely survived a brutal battle. Silently, I said a prayer for her, then took off my wedding ring. I pulled out the envelope containing the photos, wrote her name on it, and placed my ring inside before sealing it. Turning to the nurse who was attentively monitoring Marissa, I held out the envelope. Could you make sure she gets this when she wakes up? I asked. Of course, the nurse replied warmly. You can place it on that tray over there, she suggested, pointing to a nearby wheeled tray. Thank you, I said, setting the envelope on the tray to ensure Marissa would see it upon awakening. I lingered for a moment looking down at Marissa. Despite everything, it pained me to see her in such a state. Noticing she was still wearing her wedding rings, I gently removed them and pocketed them. Goodbye, Marissa, I whispered. I'll see you later. With a nod to the nurse, who offered me a sympathetic smile, I left the room. Driving home, I called Loretta to update her on the situation. She was stunned by the news, especially the complications with Marissa's health. Greg, you know Frank won't be comfortable with her staying here if she's HIV positive, Loretta stated. He's worried about the kids, and I can't argue with him on that. Her parents had moved to Florida in retirement, eliminating another potential support option. Then it seems I'll need to find her an apartment, I concluded. I think that's wise, Loretta agreed. I'm sorry, Greg, but I have to prioritize my family. She's made her choices. I can help move her belongings, but after that, I need to step back. I understand, I reassured her. You're doing what you need to do. It's late, and I need to get some sleep, but please keep me posted, she said. I will, I promised. Thanks for everything, Loretta. Hanging up, I felt the weight of the day settling over me as I drove the rest of the way home in silence. It was close to midnight when I finally reached home. Exhausted from the day's events, I quickly undressed and fell into bed, asleep almost the moment my head hit the pillow. The next morning, I woke up feeling the weight of everything that had happened. I called my doctor's office and was surprised to find they could fit me in for an appointment later that morning. After securing my appointment, I called my parents to update them on Marissa's situation. They were understandably shocked, particularly about the possibility of her being HIV positive. They offered to bring the girls to the hospital if they wished to visit her. I also shared with them the troubling evidence I had gathered about Marissa. Dad asked me to send the details to his email, which I did immediately. It's really bad, I admitted over the phone. It's all right, son, he reassured me. We'll handle this together. Once I had sent the email, I called Gina to inform her of the latest developments. She was also taken aback, but mentioned that this would allow her to finalize the divorce papers more promptly. I then contacted Marissa's office to inform her colleagues of her accident. They expressed their condolences and promised to visit her. The following 2 weeks were a blur of activity. I found a suitable 2-bedroom ground-floor apartment with an attached garage and secured it by paying the deposit and 2 months' rent up front, using funds from Marissa's half of our joint accounts. When the girls and Loretta arrived, we packed up all of Marissa's belongings, including our wedding album, and moved them to her new place. During this hectic time, I also received the results from the DNA lab confirming that both girls were indeed mine. This was a small, yet significant relief amidst the chaos. I met with the insurance adjuster to inspect the wreck of Marissa's car. Both of us were astounded she had survived the crash given the state of the vehicle. Since the car and insurance policy were in her name, The insurance company would issue her a check directly. I gathered the last of her belongings from the car and brought them to her new apartment, trying to close this painful chapter and focus on rebuilding our lives. A week after the accident, during a phone call, my mom asked, "Did you stop by Marissa's?" "No, I haven't," I replied, meaning since that initial visit. "Why?" she inquired. "I was just wondering," she continued, a tone of concern in her voice. "She's made it clear she doesn't care about us and wants to escape everything," I explained. "I'm giving her what she wants, just not how she planned it." 2 weeks later, I visited my doctor. Thankfully, I was clear of the gonorrhea Marissa had passed on, but we were still waiting to see if there was anything more serious. Physically, I was nearly healed, but emotionally, I was far from recovery. Later that day, I called my boss Alan to tell him I'd be returning to work, which pleased him greatly. That afternoon, the hospital called to say Marissa had woken from her coma. The nurse suggested I visit that evening, which worked well for me. I updated Gina, who had already filed the divorce papers and was waiting for Marissa to regain consciousness so the documents could be served. She arranged for the bailiff to meet me at the hospital. Next, I called Loretta to see if she would join me at the hospital. I then spoke to my daughters. "Your mom's awake," I told them. Their response was lukewarm. Both shrugged off the news. "I'm going to see her this afternoon. Would you like to come?" "No thanks, Dad," Lisa replied firmly. "I'm too mad at her right now." "Me too," added Ginger. "And I've got a lot of homework." "All right," I said. "I'll drop you off at your grandparents' then." By 4:30, I was driving them to my parents' house. I told them Marissa was awake and that I would be meeting Loretta and the bailiff there. "Let us know how it goes, son," Dad said as I left the girls with them. "I will," I assured him. "I'll come back for the girls afterward." "Good, then you can have some of Mom's lasagna when you get back," he said, offering a comforting smile. Mom's lasagna had a way of making any day better. "Sounds perfect," I said, feeling a slight lift in my spirits as I headed to the hospital. He handed her the documents. "You are being served with divorce papers," he stated formally. Marissa took the papers, her hands trembling slightly. There was a long pause as she scanned the top page, her face draining of color. "I see," she finally murmured, setting the documents beside her on the hospital bed. I turned to Loretta, who had remained silent, her expression somber. "Loretta, thanks for being here," I said. "Of course," she replied softly, her eyes not leaving Marissa. Turning back to Marissa, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. "We needed to resolve this," I told her, "for everyone's sake." Marissa nodded, her eyes downcast. "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted it to come to this." "I know," I said, although I wasn't sure if that was entirely true. "But here we are." The room was heavy with unspoken words and tension. I decided it was time to leave. "I'll let you rest," I said. Marissa didn't look up. "Thank you, Greg, and I am sorry," she added, her voice cracking slightly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak further. Loretta and I exited the room, leaving Marissa with her thoughts and the reality of the papers she now held. Outside, Loretta squeezed my arm. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I will be," I answered, managing a small smile. "Thanks for coming, it meant a lot." She hugged me briefly. "Call me if you need anything," she said. "I will," I promised. As I drove away from the hospital, the weight of the past week seemed to lift slightly. The future was uncertain, but at least now there was a path to begin moving forward. The process server handed Marissa the envelope and snapped a picture. "You've been served," he declared briskly before exiting the room. "You couldn't even wait until I was out of the hospital?" Marissa asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "No," I replied firmly. "You were the one who wanted to run away. I'm just accelerating your timetable by a few years." Her eyes searched mine for any sign of the man she once knew. "Do the girls know?" she asked, her tone shifting. "Yes, they do," I confirmed. "And they're not too fond of you right now, which is why they aren't here, and you don't need to worry about being burdened with them. I'm seeking full custody, though I'm willing to grant liberal visitation rights if they decide they want to see you, but as of now, they don't." Her expression faltered, clearly not expecting such decisiveness on my part. "And I suppose you hate me too?" she ventured. "Hate is a strong word," I countered calmly. "Let's just say my opinion of you has significantly diminished." She nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of my words. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" she asked, a hint of desperation in her voice. "Maybe someday," I said, "when I can look at our girls and not see the hurt you've caused, And just so you know, I had their DNA tested. They're mine. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised by my proactive approach. That won't change anything, Greg, she murmured almost to herself. I see, I continued, shifting the topic. When you're discharged, you won't be coming home. I've rented an apartment for you. Loretta will help you move in. Marissa turned to look at her sister, who had remained silent until now. All your belongings are already there, and the utilities are set up in your name, I explained further, pulling out another envelope. Here's your half of our joint savings, minus the deposit and 2 months' rent for the apartment. Since your car was totaled, you'll also be receiving an insurance payout. She took the envelope from my hand, her touch hesitant. The room filled with a thick silence that seemed to stretch between us, laden with the finality of our fractured lives. She took the envelope and nodded her head. By the way, I know about the escape fund you set up. My attorney has frozen that account. If you sign the divorce papers, she'll release the funds, I said. Minus my half, of course, Marissa added, her expression a mixture of shock and resignation. I'll fight you for it, she declared defiantly. I don't think that would be wise, I countered. Unless you want all the evidence I've gathered to go public, it's quite damning. Her defiance seemed to deflate at my words. Have your lawyer review the papers. I believe you'll find the terms are as fair as they can be under the circumstances. Marissa turned to Loretta, seeking support, but found none. You should have listened, Loretta said coldly. You lied to everyone, Greg, your kids and me. I agreed to help you move into your apartment when you're discharged, but after that, I'm done. You need to sort yourself out. Marissa started to sob. I'm so sorry, she cried, looking for some sign of sympathy from her sister. That and a few bucks will get you a coffee, Loretta snapped back. I won't let you near my family again until you make things right, starting with a genuine apology to your husband and daughters. Through her tears, Marissa looked at me. Greg, I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't mean much now, but I do love you. You're right, it doesn't mean much, I replied coldly. Sign the papers, Marissa. She nodded, overwhelmed and silent. Goodbye, Marissa. As I turned to leave, she called out, Greg, can I call the girls, please? You can call them, I said, pausing at the door, but it's up to them if they want to talk to you. I understand, she murmured. Thank you for that, at least. You're welcome, I said without turning back. I left the room, aware of the disapproving glances from the nursing staff. They might not have approved of the timing, but this was not their decision to judge. Driving away from the hospital, I headed to my parents' house. There, surrounded by family, I tried to find some solace in a hearty serving of my mom's lasagna, letting the familiar comfort of home soothe the sting of a painful day. The divorce process concluded smoothly. 3 months later, I found myself not only legally free from Marissa, but also relieved to learn that I was HIV negative, a fortunate result mirrored by Marissa as well. To my surprise, Gina presented me with a check for over $450,000, half of the secret account Marissa had amassed. With no immediate need for such a sum, I allocated it into college funds for Lisa and Ginger. Life adjusted to its new rhythm for me and my daughters. They were my anchor, keeping me grounded amidst the challenges of single fatherhood. Although managing teenage girls on my own was sometimes trying, my mother's advice and support proved invaluable. Marissa, on the other hand, seemed to be settling into her role as a single, divorced woman. After a year of cautious interactions, the girls began to reconnect with her, spending an occasional afternoon together. Marissa had resumed her real estate career with a new company, following an unceremonious exit from her previous employer due to disclosed indiscretions. According to the girls, she was performing well and had shed her deceptive tendencies. Meanwhile, I noticed an increasing amount of attention from the single women at church. They often sent me home with homemade dishes, from pies to lasagna, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by my daughters. Dad, you need to start dating again, Lisa encouraged one evening. It's not good for you to be alone, she added. I wouldn't even know where to start, I confessed, feeling out of touch with dating. And I'm not alone, I continued. You two keep me quite busy. We won't be around forever, though, Ginger chimed in with a mix of seriousness and humor. It's simple, Dad. Just ask someone out to dinner. You can do that, right? Reflecting on Ginger's words, I realized she might be right. It was perhaps time to explore life beyond fatherhood. That very Wednesday, I encountered Rhonda Carson at the church's coffee shop. Rhonda, a widow who had lost her husband to a tragic accident and was raising her teenage daughter solo, had recently given me a casserole that I had particularly enjoyed. Hi, Rhonda, how are you? I initiated, recalling the comfort her dish had brought. Hanging in there, Greg, she replied. How about you? I'm doing okay. Really enjoyed that casserole last week. Thank you, I said, hoping to spark further conversation. That's good to hear. It can be tough managing on your own, can't it? She sympathized. Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes, but we manage, I agreed, finding common ground in our shared experiences as single parents. Over coffee, we delved into the intricacies of raising teenagers alone. Encouraged by the ease of our exchange, I took a bold step. Rhonda, I'm pretty new to this, but would you like to have dinner with me sometime, maybe this Friday? I asked, feeling a mix of anticipation and nerves. She smiled, her response warming my heart. Yes, Greg, I'd like that, she accepted gracefully. Great, I beamed, feeling a flicker of excitement about the possibilities ahead. How about trying that new Texas Roadhouse place? Sounds perfect, Rhonda agreed. It's a date then. Leaving the coffee shop, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in a long time. Perhaps it was the right moment to start anew, not just for me, but for everyone involved. The girls were excited about my date with Rhonda, and they liked the idea of spending the evening with Linda, so it was all set. That Friday, I invited the girls over and we went out to dinner. Rhonda looked really cute in her denim skirt, and we had a great time. We didn't get too intimate that night, but Rhonda gave me a heartfelt kiss as I dropped her off at her house. I caught a glimpse of 3 faces peeking out from her window, and it looked like they were cheering us on. Rhonda hugged me and said, "That was the best night I've had in months." Me too, I replied. What if we do this again soon? She suggested with a smile. Maybe next time we can have a quiet evening in, she hinted playfully, her hand gently brushing my leg. I felt a spark of excitement. That sounds like a plan, I agreed, enjoying the flirtation. The girls were thrilled about how well the date went, and honestly, I was too. Spending time with Rhonda felt natural and refreshing. While I'm not certain where this might lead, I'm open to exploring where our next steps might take us.